'Tis the season. The NBA season is here. It officially kicks off tomorrow. And today we've got business getting done, or in some cases, not getting done around the league as we're seeing extensions starting to come through, including one that might lead to a pretty big trade in the NBA. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin, our 100% independent basketball channel. Make sure you do subscribe. Help us out. Join us on this journey. All right, so the New Orleans Pelicans got a deal done with Trey Murphy III. Now, he's one of several players to get contract extensions done, including most recently Jalen Green with the Houston Rockets. That broke just a few moments ago. But Trey Murphy III got a 4-year, $112 million rookie contract extension. Jalen Green, by the way, getting 3 years, $106 million, so a little bit better value there in terms of Jalen Green's per year value than Trey Murphy III. But I like Trey Murphy a lot. 4-year, $112 million rookie contract extension. I like this deal this is a good deal for the Pelicans. No incentives. This is interesting in this day and age. No incentives, no player option on Murphy's contract. So just a straight 4-year, no frills contract. There it is. He is going to be out at the start of the season here due to a hamstring issue, but Trey Murphy he's fantastic. He's a tremendous player. Love what he brings to New Orleans. He's got the range to shoot from all over the court. He can get hot in an instant, and he's the kind of guy that you want in today's NBA. Defensively, I think he's going to eventually be a very versatile, very switchy player for the Pelicans on the wing, and so I like this contract a lot for them. You take a look at what he's done recently, Trey Murphy, 15 points per game last season, 5 boards, shot. Look at the volume. My goodness, 8 attempts from 3 and shot 38%, shot 41% from 3 the season before that. The free throw shooting says the same thing. This dude can shoot the ball. That's what it tells you, right? You look at that, 87% from the free throw line. He's an incredible shooter, and I think this is a great value contract for a guy who's still a very young player with plenty of upside. But what does this also tell us about the Pelicans and their future? Because these moves aren't being made in a vacuum. Well, the Pelicans are now just $31 million below the luxury tax for next season. That's a number they're probably not going to want to cross. And so what this tells us, this long-term commitment, you can see it there on the screen, to Trey Murphy III, is that Brandon Ingram's time in New Orleans has probably come to an end. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. Now, Herb Jones, not the financial commitment they've already made to Trey Murphy. Herb Jones might be one of the best value contracts in the NBA. You look at that number there, just around mid-level exception deal. Actually, it is an MLE deal for Herb Jones, 3 more years on his contract. But these two guys are clearly the wings that the Pelicans want to build around, and Brandon Ingram is the odd man out. He is extension eligible. That extension has not come. $36 million on the books right now. And clearly, the Pelicans are going to look to trade Brandon Ingram, and they have been trying to trade Brandon Ingram ahead of the trade deadline coming up in February. So they've got some problems, though, and Brandon Ingram has some problems. And there's 2 big issues, 2 reasons why Brandon Ingram is still on this roster, but the Pelicans, very clearly, this money tells you he is not part of the future. They're going to do everything they can to move him, but they're going to have to overcome 2 big hurdles. And hurdle number 1 is the amount of money that Brandon Ingram wants. He wants top dollar. He wants to get the money that he would have got under the old CBA. The problem is, this is the new CBA. It's not the old CBA. And unfortunately for Brandon Ingram, the guys that are getting squeezed under the new CBA are guys like him. Fringe all-stars. Fringe all-stars are getting squeezed because in the past, they were given max deals. Now teams are being more choosy with who gets a max contract. You see, in the NBA, if you are a true tier 1A superstar, teams will hand you a max contract without a second thought. How many years do you want on the deal? Here you go. You tell us. What do you want on your contract? You want extra incentives? You want whatever you want. You can have it. We will give you that. Teams will happily fork over max deals, because the truth is that a max contract for the top tier stars, I'm talking Giannis, Luka, Jokic, those guys, the top tier guys are actually getting underpaid on max contracts, because that's the value they bring both on the court and off when we talk about merchandising and all that kind of stuff. So those guys, teams will happily all day hand over max contracts, no problem. But what had happened under the old CBA is guys who were all-stars, really good, but not great, but really good. Those guys were also getting max contracts. Not anymore. And the reason why is because when you have a player like Brandon Ingram, who is really damn good, look at this, 21 points, 6 assists, 5 boards last season, shot the ball well from deep, 36% from deep, 39% the season before that. When you have a guy like that, that's really good, but he's not a top 2 guy on a championship contender, that's a problem. Because here's the thing, despite the fact that there's a few teams right now that are pursuing 3-star builds, when you look at, say, the Phoenix Suns, in general, the way the new collective bargaining agreement is structured, it's set up to dissuade teams from trying to put 3 stars together. You can put 2 stars together. If you put 3, you're going to have basically no depth. Otherwise, you're going to be running right up against that second-tier apron, which most teams around the league right now are going to approach as a hard cap. They're not going to want to pass that. And those that have passed it so far, teams like the Celtics, teams like obviously the Suns, these teams are going to drop below it sooner rather than later. They're going to have to. Otherwise, they're going to incur some pretty serious consequences in terms of future draft capital. So I do think that the way things are going to be set up for the future, it's a lot of 2 stars and depth style builds. Well, those 2 stars then better be really good. They better be top of the top guys. A guy like Brandon Ingram doesn't quite fit that bill. And that's why these are the guys getting squeezed. Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine, he's got his contract already, but there's a reason why he's still a Chicago Bull. And it's not just injuries. It's a reason why people raised their eyebrows when the Nuggets gave Jamal Murray the amount of money that they did, because people went, is he really that top tier guy? Because if he's not, this could be a problem giving him that much money. That's the reality of the new CBA. In the past, where you'd hand out max deals like nobody's business, that's not happening anymore. And so for Brandon Ingram, who just a couple of years ago easily gets handed a max contract, no problem, and we move on, he's looking around saying, I want that money. I want a max deal. The Pelicans saying, no, we're not going to be the ones to give it to you. And that is the issue. There isn't a team right now that wants to give Brandon Ingram his next contract. Not if he wants that much money. Now, Brandon Ingram says, all right, I'll take $30 million. Teams will line up. Teams will be interested, but not at the money that he wants. If he says, hey, I'll do a 4-year, $100 million deal, no problem. Teams will do it. Absolutely. But with the money that he wants, it's not happening. So nobody wants to give Brandon Ingram his next contract. Now, he has shot the 3, according to reports coming out of Pelicans camp, is that he shot the 3 at a higher volume, and he's been shooting it really well. Maybe that increases his value to teams if his 3-point attempts go back up to where they were a few years ago. Maybe that's something that happens. But for right now, in the current market, and it's not that he's a bad player. He's not. There's a lot of teams that would love to have Brandon Ingram, but nobody wants to, in this economy, give Brandon Ingram his next contract. Now, on top of that, the other problem that Brandon Ingram has, it's an availability issue. And you look at what he's done. Again, the stats are great. He puts up numbers every single year. Pretty consistent. Unfortunately, what's also consistent is that he's only available part of every single year. 64 games played this past season. That's the most games he's played in a season since he was 19 years old. Since the 2016-2017 season. You can pretty much count on Brandon Ingram missing a large chunk of games every single season. Think about that. 64 games played. That's the most games he's appeared in since his rookie season back in 2016. And it still was not enough to qualify him for any of the major awards. Not saying he would have won the awards, but in the NBA, you have to play 65 games to be eligible for the awards. Brandon Ingram, in the most games he's played since 2016, still didn't hit the bare minimum to be eligible for an NBA regular season award. That's a little frightening. And so that's going to scare teams off as well. That's the other issue. If he was playing 75 games a season, teams would be much more willing. Teams would be talking about it. Now, maybe there's a team out there that sees themselves as being, one piece short and would like to go get Brandon Ingram. That certainly could change midseason. You look at some of the teams that maybe just need a little extra boost. I look at teams like the Clippers, like the Sacramento Kings, Could there be a surprise team that makes a move up in the East? Maybe it's the Atlanta Hawks. Could that be a team? Even though they've got plenty of depth on the wing, could that be a team that goes in and has some interest? A team that's not quite there and sees Brandon Ingram as the final piece to make them a solid playoff team, maybe somebody like that talks themselves in to going after Brandon Ingram. But right now, this commitment to Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III from the New Orleans Pelicans, it tells you this is what the Pelicans are moving towards. This is their team. Brandon Ingram's not part of it. On top of that, they don't have a center. They've got Daniel Tice, who's fine as a backup center. They've got Yves Missi, who I'm really excited about as a young prospect, but he's going to take a while. He's a development guy. Daniel Tice is a backup. They don't have a center on this team. So the obvious option here for the Pelicans is to turn Brandon Ingram into a center. But again, they have to worry about the luxury tax for next season. I do think, though, before the trade deadline, the Pelicans are going to do everything they possibly can to move on from Brandon Ingram. They're fully committing to Trey Murphy, fully committing to Herb Jones, and they're going to try to turn Brandon Ingram some way, somehow, into a starting caliber big man. And until then, they're probably just going to roll out all the wings and Zion Williamson. Just put your best players on the floor. Don't worry about positions and see how it all shakes out. But everybody, let me know in the comment section. What do you think about the deal that Trey Murphy III got? I think it's a bargain. Do you agree? Let me know in the comment section. And where's Brandon Ingram going to wind up? One thing we know for sure, he's not part of the future in New Orleans. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. Until next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.